just outside of what would otherwise be known as the capital of America, not Red Square. Thank you very much. Good morning, Unrenewed Tech.
Well, it was a good morning until you reminded me of where I live.
Yeah, look at
thanks for that. Way to be a downer.
Well, look at the bright side. It's not like you're out California way over at the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah, you might have to worry about
full uniform.
Yeah, we have to worry about flying projectiles.
Well, see, there is one positive to all this bullshit. I was in junior high and high school because I thought America and Russia would make peace. Obviously, not in the way that we're actually doing it. I decided that I wasn't going to be like most of the other kids and take Spanish or French. I studied Russian. Now, I am no expert. Don't ask me to be a translator because I can't. My grasp of spoken languages is limited at best. I do not have the aptitude for it, and that's what I found out after several years of trying hard to memorize the language. However, if we end up turning into a hammer and sickle kind of country, at least I've got some foundational work and historical understanding going on to work with.
There's that at least. For those of you,
sorry. And I also know what hour of the day to get up for the lines for bread and cheese.
Great. Yeah, down. Go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, I was looking on this server on Discord not too long ago. I'm sorry, what were you thinking? But there was one. I thought it was actually hilarious. It was a box of crackers and a picture of Putin on top of it. The crackers were Ritz crackers.
Yeah.
Putin on the Ritz.
Bingo.
Yeah, which is a far older song than most people recognize.
Oh, I know. Just when I saw that, it was just like, okay, I see what you did there. A lot of it flies over my head, but that one, I'm proud to say I was dim enough to actually catch.
Your reaction time is, and the camera is.
Some of the live streams I've watched, you can see when they're like, if they're reading something like off the headlines or something like that, you actually see them physically turn their body. So I think what they're doing is instead of having the webcam or whatever, say on top of the monitor, like most people.
Yeah. And, me, I'm cheap. I'm using whatever it is that I got.
Yeah. These are also people that, make 4 digits a month on Patreon and, can afford that kind of luxury.
Currently being watched over by a couple of people dressed the president in their display. But my problem with it is there's nothing in the picture that is obviously stating this is parody. So a piece of me is looking at this going, I would otherwise kind of have to take them at the word until I heard otherwise because, well, and that really, what's the expression? Dalan? Grinds my gears, twists my nipples, bunches my shorts.
Yeah, I was going to say that's 3 of the less vulgar ones that I know of, but I get what you're coming from.
Yeah. So yeah. So we'll make sure that the Unrenewed Tech is just going ahead and give
my last name of Clay, I think it is. They're saying that he's the second person to have destroyed the star. Somebody else did it in October last year as well. Also, other people have done satirical work, such as building a tiny wall around it. And I was trying to figure out, why the hell am I not seeing any pictures? And then I realized, oh, crap, I still got that. So there's extensions that you can add to your Chrome web browser. And I have one. And it's called Make America Kittens Again. And I have it set so that whenever there's a picture involving anything with Donald Trump or Mike Pence, it shows me instead pictures of kittens.
Yep.
So I'm staring at a kitten who's upside down, kind of hanging over the edge of something, talking about Donald Trump's Star of Fame being destroyed. It's just like, I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Whoops.
The second line in that article states the satirical Soviets were first spotted Wednesday. So I would call this satire, considering the fact that
I'll tell you what I would love to see.
I don't think Russian military is actually allowed on U.S. soil.
What I would love to see is I would love to see somebody who was from Russia and had served in the military and came to the United States and become an American citizen. Go up to those guys and go, look, you've got it all wrong. You've got the pins over here. They actually go over here. The hat's on backwards. You need to get those cuffs up. Yeah, and just go to town and get them into shape, right? And go, okay, great. Now you're all set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do it, right, put some effort into it. And you know, maybe get a little help. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that I have a high school acquaintance whose family was over from Russia. Brought his family in because the father was an engineer of sorts, and a very good one. And our country really wanted him. So I brought him over, promised and granted him and his family citizenship. And his son and I became very good friends. His son used to invite me over, and his whole family would help me with me speaking Russian and learning to read Russian. And oh my God, could his mom cook?
I'll bet.
Oh, there is some really good Russian food. Oh,
Well,
I've never had borscht that was that good. You say what you can say whatever you want. Oh, it's made out of beets. It's beet soup. A good hot beet soup with a dollop of sour cream mixed into it. Oh, it's amazing when it's really, really well done. Oh,
I think it was Ben Sisko who said if you don't like beets, it's because you haven't had it made right yet.
Oh God, this lady, she made these pastries that were like this big when they were on your plate. Okay, they were that big around and they were that tall. Ooh. And they were filled with this kind of a cross between a custard and a pudding that had crushed walnuts into it. She made me fall in love with walnuts because it was and the filling was just sweet enough. It wasn't overly sweet. The pastry itself, again, just sweet enough, not overly sweet, not like American pastries or even some of those French delicacies. It was just a right balance. I'd go there, I'd eat like 6 of those things, and she'd have the big old grin just watching me stuff my face with them. Yeah, I miss that family. Oh, I miss that family. Oh.
Nothing wrong with that. So anyway. So let's get everything rolling. Yeah, as far as, and like some people say, who you are when you're drunk or really deep down inside compared to, what you see. I'd like to be a better person, but be that as it may. And the reason why I want to bring this up is that I got lucky this past week. My little one was at the Buffalo Institute, the Summer Institute for Genocide Studies. And I forgot what the rest of the sides, specifically the Holocaust in one case, a couple of cases. But I got the chance to shake hands with, get a picture with, and sign the book for Mary Beth Tinker, which is not a name that most people recognize. But Mary Beth Tinker, who is currently wearing a black armband with a white peace symbol on it. And the school district said, you can't do that. And they said, we think that we're able to iron out for everybody else. That even though you are a minor and a student, your right to free speech is still in effect. You can't have somebody in, government or a governmental agency telling you what you can and cannot say, especially if it's a peaceful protest. She was a delight to talk to. She is somebody that I would love to have on this show. And we may, trying to find their voice about, but we kind of work with this whether we realize it or not. So we're going to kind of do a little bit.
Your earless feeder are designed to basically bring down society as you know it. And unfortunately, this is the double-edged sword of some. Yes, not all speech is created equal, but yeah, this is where a lot of what we see today is coming from.
And you've got a problem with reading our Constitution because it's missing that extra U all over the place. Color, honor,
English U. It's not here in Calgary. Not very well liked by some people. As a matter of fact, when he went on business trips south of the border, he would bring with him an entourage of no less than 6 bodyguards at a time.
Hey, if you got them.
Yeah, but I'd almost want to say this guy is I'd say he's almost like the Calgary version of Trump, except this guy was actually moderately successful. At the same time, was one time the king of Norway was visiting. My brother was able to walk out of his desk, walk straight up to him, introduce himself, and shake the king's hand with no fear of retribution or aversion. So, you could bend a knee. I would hope that, more of these royals would consider themselves, unless you actually have power, don't pretend or don't walk around thinking that you do.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing that I have intention on talking about later. Be the nicest way of putting it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You also have people that you've worked with in different levels of experience and know-how in the, shall we say, the .NET environment.
Sure. That's fair enough.
Yeah, for those of you that don't get it, I'm talking about military and networking, military and networking, IT, that kind of thing.
Compared to what the Navy's gone through, yes. At least at one particular location that I know of. I have an equation.
This is something that's hard for me to believe, right? I mean, I went through the army during the period. Well, to be fair, at the time,
the nightmares.
Well, to be fair, at the time, I wasn't doing a whole lot with computers.
Often than not, right?
So, I've heard the phrase that a Master Chief is the salt of the earth. And I've come to understand why. I've noticed that as you get higher into the enlisted ranks, they tend to be very down to earth. They know how things work. If you want something done, listen to them. Because they usually have been there, done that. They know how it's supposed to work by the book. And they also know how it can be finagled within the rules, but to be more efficient. And I myself in my IT role have also learned that in the position that I hold as a contractor. I know I have a list of policies and procedures that I must follow. If A is not done, you cannot move to B. If B is not done, you cannot move to C, so on and so forth. It's really compartmentalized. I mean, some of the stuff, they could make a regular union look amateur in compared to how compartmentalized some of the policies and procedures are. And I've learned where I can finagle things to make things more efficient within the confines of my SOP, my standard operating procedure. So, as such, when I have somebody I have to work with who needs my assistance and they're polite, I'm going to move mountains for them. But every once in a while, I've got a few people under my care who are complete and utter jerks. They think they are God's gift to whatever. They think that it's not unreasonable to demand that I show them how to use a particular function in Excel when they're being paid to have that knowledge and I'm not. It's like, here's Google. Have a nice day. That's not part of my SOP. Do it yourself. Then they come to me for something that is part of my SOP, but they're a dick about it. Not a problem. First, we have to start with A. Once A is done, then we can move on to B. Can you speed it up? Once A is done, then we can move on to B.
Yeah.
And I have learned this by listening to my peers, by my end users that are in the military, and they've actually come to respect my position as they understand more about what I am tasked with doing and how things work. Because when they have something go wrong and they want to know why it's taking so long, they will actually sit down with me and listen to what I tell them about how the procedure works. And they will actually let me explain it to them. And then they will think about it and ask, okay, how about at this point in here, does it give you wiggle room to do X? And so they'll make suggestions and such. And in some cases, it's actually helped me out, help them better. And in other cases, it's like, it's a good idea, but I've already gone that route. It doesn't work. Okay, well, I'll just have to wait longer. And you know, they react with logic and reason. The ones who blow up, we have to wait for A before we get to B.
So,
well, yeah, glad to be here. Sorry I'm late.
it's okay. You know, we it's all good. So, it doesn't matter. It's all good. So here's the avenue that I was trying to get at. And this is now going to kind of go over to Dalan because, well, Dalan can describe it as, well, they're at a bit. It doesn't really much matter how I describe it, right?
No. I mean, if it involved a computer, I was involved. Basically, any kind of technology, be it in the office, on the shop floor, anything inside of that building was basically my responsibility if it had any kind of technology tied to it. Unlike tech, though, there was a significant lack of respect for my abilities, and I think the word tech that you might have been
malicious compliance.
No. Wisdom. Like you were talking about the Master Chiefs being the salt of the earth. What that comes up with is wisdom, which is something you learn through experience. And being in, a tech profession, no pun intended. Yeah, right there. Like I saw what I did there. Damn it.
It's okay.
But being in that kind of profession, you do try things, you do make mistakes, but you do gain experience from it, and you know what works, what doesn't. As you said, I was in the same position you are, where we have to get to A before we can move on to B. A lot of my bosses didn't quite grasp that concept, and they wanted to sometimes bypass B and go directly to C. At which point I said it's not going to work, and they said do it anyway. And then when it blew up, they would look back at me and said, why didn't it work? I'm like, well, you told me not to go to B. And then they'd, go off in a huff because, Lord forbid, they actually consider themselves wrong. Cut to 5 years ago, where a 45-year-old company closed its doors because they just dug in their heels too much and did not listen to the wisdom of the people who were running the place. And this is the tragedy of it. Sucks when you're proven wrong. Like, I'm in a new position at work now. I've been in a comfort zone for 6 years in this new place. And 2 months ago, I broke out of it. Brand new department, brand new software, brand new learning curve, new team to work with. But I am now the bottom of the food chain. Like the backbone software is completely different philosophically, physically, and in a deployment sense than what I'm used to. I am stumbling around. What was it? My old boss, like a bull of moose calf in heat. And I'm getting talked to by people who've done this job a lot more than I have, a lot longer. And they're explaining things to me. And they're not trying to condescend. They're not trying to talk down, but it is grating because it's a blow to the ego. It feels like, it's like I said, I started on Monday, best of intentions, bright bushy-tailed. And by Friday, I basically dragged myself across the threshold of my door. I felt my brain leaking out of my ear because I honestly felt I was getting dumber and dumber as the week went by.
I know how you feel.
Yeah, it's just.
But what was the conflict? I mean, is it just their methodology, or?
Oh no, it's just the software I'm working with right now. It's for a completely different clientele than what I've been used to.
Okay.
For the longest time. It's structurally different. It's actually an entirely web-based software. So troubleshooting, it's not quite as cut and dried. I can't, break into certain codes or config files to immediately diagnose a problem.
Yeah, you got a lot of reverse engineering ahead of you.
Well, exactly.
Before you can adapt.
Yeah. So if I'm on a call with a client and all of a sudden I see that exception error pop up on a website, I'm like, oh crap, now what do I do? And I mean, this happened to me a few years ago. I was demoing a variant of this product to a very high paying customer. That sounded bad. And every time I went to demo it, it was something and it would blow up. And instead of me being able to fix it right there, I had to contact the development team, 2 members of which were in the UK, to get it fixed. And the turnaround was, maybe a day. So then I'd have to reschedule the training for another day. And then we would get, A to B. And then when we tried to get to C, it would blow up again because the program was just still in its infancy. The one I'm working with now is the more mature version of it. But even as I'm training myself on it, I'm finding these glitches and, not next week, but the week after, I have to go before a multi-million-dollar client and teach them part of this. You might say I'm a little bit stressed over this because I lack the wisdom of the experience of working with this program to have that kind of confidence to say, okay, I know what to do. And
yeah, the client may mistake your lack of confidence in your own knowledge in a lack of confidence for the product.
Right. And the mindset of these clients. Now, okay, why
don't you just come straight with your bosses and just say, look, I don't think I should do this until I'm more familiar with the.
Well, that's just it. They're giving me lots of time.
Okay.
I've like all this last week was intensive training. For this one component. So I'm getting prepared, but this is going to be my first dance with it, so to speak. Everybody kind of fumbles their first time, but once you do it once, you get into the rhythm. I've learned that way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like even the mindset, the normal customers I used to work with were standard transit organizations, city buses, You know, you pay your fare, you get your transfer notice, you get driven to a stop, you get off, you do your thing, you wait for the next bus to come back on. That's what I've been doing for the past 6 years. Now, I'm working with something called non-emergency medical transportation. These are basically handy buses or handy vans, where a broker will accept the call. So Mrs. Jones calls 1-800 need a lift, and need a lift central switchboard in wherever takes the call, and they book it. They book the trip in this software, and then they will dispatch it to what's called a provider, which would be a local agency in that city that will go pick up Mrs. Jones. And then they have a device in their van to notify the agent, or to notify the broker that they've arrived at the site, they've picked up the passenger, they've driven to the destination, all of that. It's a way to keep track of things. But there's so many more things, more variables. Like city transit organizations, they run pretty loose. I'll say that much. They talk themselves awfully big. You know, it's fun watching some of these people try to sound more important than they are. Like there's some that are earnestly, you know, they're damn good at what they do, and full respect to them. But then there are some that, you know, they're puffing their chest out artificially. But the brokers and these providers that are doing the non-emergency medical stuff, they're damn good at what they do. And with all there's been a new restriction put in, something called HIPAA, which is this. Yeah, Tech knows what about.
My son's mother was medical, so I learned a lot about HIPAA.
Yeah,
rules, regulations, things that they have to abide by. And if you've never had to deal with it, that's like getting hit by a Mack truck in the side of the head and never having seen or heard it coming.
And I'm being trained as one of the new data stewards for the company for that.
You have my sympathy. I will send you a 55-gallon drum of vodka.
Make sure it's
courtesy
the vodka,
of Donald Trump.
Yeah, make sure it's the vodka, not the lube. Don't send me that one.
But wait, in this story, isn't Dalan the Mack truck?
Once he gets trained, he will be an instrument of HIPAA.
Yeah.
But for now, the instrument is going to, by beating him over the head with the equivalent of about 55 Unix manuals from the 1990s.
Yeah, there is like because of some of the stuff we do.
I mean, kid, when he's done, we will get a recap.
Yeah, some of the things that I've learned just recently. If, for instance, we have to take a copy of an agency's database to run troubleshooting, it has to be HIPAA-fied before it can leave that agency's premises. There are 18 qualifiers that we have to meet before we can transfer that data out. Otherwise, and this is a Canadian company, but if we're transferring American agency information up north here, it has to be HIPAA compliant. And in order to do that, like I said, there's 8. Yeah. Anyways, but needless to say, I'm getting into something where I lack the wisdom to really consider myself confident. Everything would be just for show. And if I was proven wrong on anything, which I've been done quite a bit, I do get frustrated because it feels humiliating, and nobody likes to feel that.
Yeah, I want to do something a little bit fun for a second. Joey, a fragmentation grenade, or putting a who has no formal document that says that they're trained, suddenly coming out and saying, "Yeah, I've got paperwork that turns everything on its head." that would normally be something that shouldn't happen and shouldn't be taken seriously at first.
Why?
Well, you guys, like I said, somebody who is not formally trained, has nothing behind them for history that shows that they've been following through in the area of physics, who now comes out and says, I've got something that turns everything that you've ever thought on its head, is kind of a very large cavern to cross all on its own.
Sure, but that's why would you be judging them on their credentials? I mean, if you can read the paper and claims are founded in evidence or whatever, it's going to be that determines the value of their proposition and not their credentials. But unfortunately, what you're saying is actually the study is well, if you don't have the letters behind your name, then well, you're not taken seriously at all, not even looked at.
Yep, and that's kind of the point that I'm kind of getting at. Because
and in Einstein's time, it was better because these kind of quote unquote crazy propositions. Well, it wasn't so easy to get. If you're going to take the time to actually write a paper and submit it and send it in, it was a lot more work then than it is these days. But these days it's even worse because universities and peer reviewers, they're like inundated or flooded with propositions because it's just so easy for anyone just to throw something together.
We've talked about, look at some of the Kickstarters, some of the crowdfunding, next generation of products that are going to change the world. Sorry, Bill. Well, no, like the self-filling water bottle, the water seer, the gill. I'll even go so far as to say the Hyperloop.
Well, that one, truth be told, that one, I still haven't read up enough to find out where the physics breaks down, if it breaks down.
Well,
I guess I'm in the position of not knowing it yet, so hence
No.
I'm kind of hedging on that.
I think, but I want to get back to Shujin's original point
Yeah.
for asking me why. You're asking about what makes one idea better than another.
Well, the idea that kind of brought it all together, that kind of inspired me on this one, is that the idea that there are a number of times where people will put out an idea, whether it's in their wheelhouse or not, and expect to be taken seriously regardless. And they not very well versed in a subject that could just go ahead and say, yeah, I don't have any reason to take you seriously. That's kind of where it all came down from.
If you've lived long enough and you've dealt enough with academia, you realize that after a while that only about 10%, and that's being generous probably, of scientists and most researchers are really critical thinkers or innovative. Their line of research, very few of them are actually looking to break new frontiers. And most of them are in the work of memorization, almost standardization of existing knowledge. So when you present a new idea to somebody, first off, well, they're going to have to be able to actually think about it. Whereas most would tend to reject anything that doesn't match the status quo. That's another layer of rejection you'll have unless you're talking with somebody who's really on the cutting edge of research.
Now, for those of you that are kind of wondering, why did I specifically send the Joseph's way? It's because he's kind of in that position himself. You've been working on paper for yourself for a while, and you kind of butted up against people who have basically poo-pooed you because you don't have the letters after your name to denote that you've gone through the formalized training systems.
But which one are you talking about specifically?
I did not realize that you had several.
I'm okay. I'm working in AI, most recently, but I've been working in neuroscience and quantum physics as well. But I think what did you read? It was a quantum physics that you read?
I don't think that I necessarily read it. I think that you had referenced it several times. I might have skimmed at some point when you talked about it. If memory serves, it was in physics. It might have been.
If it's in my blog, it's pretty detailed what I wrote, and it's just dating back to like 3 years ago. But yeah, basically, I'm postulating that gluons and even the Higgs boson and all that, these are just they're not actual things in themselves. They're more variations of a same thing.
And as I understood it, you were kind of running up against people who just poo-pooed it out of hand. No?
Yeah, it basically it turns like probably almost half a century of physics on its head. Well, not really on its head. I mean, it doesn't say it's wrong. It's just say there's something underneath it. Basically, every particle in existence, and the particle that also includes photons. So, okay. Because the definition of that term varies depending on who you're talking to, but like everything in existence, quote unquote, is basically it's a fight between it's a point of energy trying to get back to its zero state, basically, and it's all inverse squared. And it's like when you look at magnetism and you look at gravity and all this, it's all inverse square. It comes down to the same equation. So there's a thread through all of this. You'd have to read my blog. But anyways, yeah. So like, yeah, I got laughed at. Oh, one of the most revealing things wasn't the submission of the paper itself. I asked a question or two. I don't know if you're familiar with Quora. But
only just vaguely.
Well, it's a place you can ask questions because during my research, you know, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so I asked a couple questions. Quora is a place where you can ask questions and you get informed answers from people normally in the trade you're asking the question about.
Yeah, so Quora.com is interesting.
Yeah. So I wrote a question once, and it said, what was my question? Yeah, have particle mechanics, like how an actual particle works, has it ever been physically demonstrated? Because for now it's all theory, and by theory I mean hypothesis, because it never has been observed. And they have a model, like for example how electromagnetic particle, electromagnetic wave, which is actually a particle too, but how it works. And they have a complex model based on equations and all that, but it's all mathematics. They've never seen it. So, yeah. So just to test that. So like, we're working on modern physics is basically, it's about 3 generations of hypothesis working like the electromagnetic. It's just starting way back in the 19th century, like with Faraday and his electromagnetic theory. the physicists after him based their theories on his theories, and so on. So you've got a whole chain of quote unquote research or hypothesizing based on, just like it's like a hypothesis cake, really, modern physics. And that's why it's all over the place. And that's probably why it doesn't correspond to Einstein's finding.
Paragraph 30-3.
What?
What?
Paragraph 30-3? What the hell was that?
Army Regulation 670-1 states.
Joe?
What are you reading?
Military funerals, memorial services, weddings, inaugurals, and other occasions of ceremony.
What?
This is an occasion of ceremony.
Joe?
You're out loud reading about ceremony.
What is that you're reading about? Or more specifically, why?
Can you hear us? I wonder if his audio went out again.
That could entirely be. We'll figure out in just a second. Somebody could tappity.
I think my mumbling may have put them for a loop.
Nah, just figure it out in a second. So,
just to finish my Quora question, the answers I got to a lot of these were just basically admonishments for not towing the line. The status quo, the academic status quo. Like, how dare you question the academic status quo?
So the point that I was trying to get through to this is that, yeah, the marketplace of ideas has a currency which is usually expected to be someone's expertise in a field, but as Joseph has pretty well put it out there, it's not always that cut and dry.
No.
Because one of the ways that you can actually kind of jump the line is to actually, follow through with the good old adage, and Dalan knows I love this expression, prove it.
Yeah.
And credentials.
This guy, because he's a PhD.
Mm-hmm. And if you're talking to somebody who's, if you're asking a question of somebody who's supposedly of the same, trade as your paper is, or whatever your proposition is, and he's asking you about your credentials, well, I immediately want to stop talking to that person.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. One of the things they told me in college, they said, you're going to graduate with a Bachelor of Science, BSc. And I thought, great, I've got this degree. It'll tell people that I school and that I know what I'm talking about. That degree, from what everybody told me, was that gets you in the door. That gets you a higher chance of a sit down for a job interview than somebody else. And that's all it gives you.
Yeah, because the person probably hiring doesn't know your trade. That's why they need you.
Well, Tech.
Yes, sir.
Are you by any chance an MCSE? Or an MCDB or anything like that?
You mean Minesweeper Certified Solitaire Expert?
Pretty much.
No, but I know what's entailed in it. I've actually studied the material. I just never took the test.
My question to you, do you think you could take one of those whippersnappers that have those papers and run circles around them while they're getting dizzy?
That depends. If one of those whippersnappers that have the paper have no hands-on experience, yes. If one of those whippersnappers is on experience, even if it's self-taught, and they took the time to go get the cert, there's a chance that we might be on somewhat level ground depending on what the problem is and depending on how extensive the problem is. So, I mean, the answer varies. There's no absolute answer to it. But I would take on anybody who's only book learned any day of the week.
Prosecution rest, Your Honor. No, to my point, what Joseph said about essentials, it doesn't mean squat. You say, no, I don't have a PhD in physics, but I have worked the past 15 years in this field, and I can out-physics you any day of the week. And they probably could.
I was taught in programming language. My first steps in Swift were taught to me by a 12-year-old. You know, and
Swift, very cool.
Yeah, but this guy could, he could run circles around.
Yeah, most kids can learn languages intuitively from a very early age up into their early teenage years. So the fact that a 12-year-old understood a computer language is not surprising to me. No. And it's not even surprising that they were willing to teach, because kids love to share. I am actually slightly envious of your position of being able to have been in the presence of a young adult who had taken the time to use their aptitude to actually learn something like that and then want to share it. Because those are priceless moments in time.
And for him, it's probably rare to have an adult share his enthusiasm.
And you probably treated the young one with the respect that was due of a teacher.
In French, normally in French, there's two ways of addressing people. There's vous voir, which is a respectful you, and tu vois. And normally, the tradition is for kids younger than, somebody younger than 18, you tutoie them, which is just like an informal address. But I was vouvoying this kid after half an hour with him.
Wait, is that with an L or a V in the beginning? Vuva or luva?
Vous.
Vuva.
Vouvoie. Vouvoie, which means vouvoie, it's just a manner. It's
vouvoie. Okay.
To break it down in conjugation. Correct me on this one if I'm wrong, Joseph. Vous is also plural of tu.
Exactly, yes.
But
it's like
it
a
is
royal
also,
we.
It is also shown as a token of respect to your elders, or to, like you said, somebody of perceivably an authority figure of some kind.
Not really. No, it's actually just a form of respect. Even just meeting somebody for the first time, you vouvoie them.
Okay.
Just to show them. It's like respect by default. And then after you get to know them more, then you ask. It's normally the tradition to ask, do you mind, can we tutoie? And then from then on, you tutoie each other.
French, man. I don't. French, man. I don't.
Whatever. Isn't Japanese kind of the same thing? They come up with names for other people.
Oh, God, there's different conjugations for a
degree.
It's funny that all the doctors...
He has a PhD in psychology from the University of North Texas.
Okay. Particular issues.
Experimental psychology, and a PhD degree in clinical psychology. He neck deep in psychology. Sorry, tizzy's the wrong word. A debate with somebody who had a doctor in their name, and it turned out they were a doctorate of some kind of feng shui kind of thing going on. But no, it was something of the arts. This was not somebody with a physics degree or a math degree or a science degree or something, and they were arguing science.
A good example would be
themselves a doctor.
Yeah, a good example would be I have
on Saturday or Sunday mornings or whatever it was. Also, the guy who was doing crossword puzzles for the New York Times, I think it was, he actually created his own doctorate program, I believe is what it was, in the realm of basically crossword puzzles and various mental puzzles. But he actually did the work behind it, although if you were to kind of ask somebody to say, well, is it an established doctorate program?
Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, do they flout their doctor credentials? But then you got Dr. Phil.
But that's the thing. with Richard Dawkins and such.
It a lot of times it comes back to Wheaton's rule: don't be a dick. Yes, it's all well and good that you went ahead and you spent however much money and you did so many years.
It's the I with a big heart and Cox.
Don't worry, that already exists.
Surely you can't get a nickname worse than Turkey Neck. Yeah, hold my beer.
See, there's a thing on Reddit. There is a subreddit called Military Stories and another one called Malicious Compliance. Somebody needs to murder, and then he needs to be the first post.
We'll keep that. We'll keep that in mind. When we stop tonight.
Yeah, and then you get.
And in
those
some cases,
people,
they can even charge you. And in some cases, they
people-
can even charge you if you do, and it's not an emergency.
Yep. And then you get those people who will, you know, the first time, like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? No problem. I'm a good driver. I went to such and such school of driving. I know how to drive. I've winter driven before. And then those are the same vehicles that I see wreckage strewn out over, I don't know, 3 kilometers, about 6 miles.
I will admit, I have driven through blizzards before. I have driven through things that most people would go, you know what? There is nothing that you could say or do that'd make me do what I'm doing. And the reason why I do these things is because in some cases it's, custody exchange. I am going to get my son.
But do you drive at full speed?
No, I have the experience and the wisdom to know than normal, what to avoid, things like that. The ones who are down here that tend to wind up on the side of the road are the big SUVs going, I've got all-wheel drive. I've got 4-wheel drive. It's like, dude, you've got 4-wheel drive, not all-wheel drive. Or it's ice. I've got front-wheel drive or a 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's like, dude, unless you have studded tires, it's ice.
Do you have the right argument?
Lack of proof. And the really sad thing is I'm seeing it from people who just a few years ago I fully respected as critical thinkers, skeptics, people who were more than happy to take an argument, break it down to its basest components, and either say, okay, that this is correct, or no, you're wrong, and here's why. Now I see a lot of those same people leveling accusations at their opponents that put me in mind of the very apologetic who just a few years ago they were arguing against in a very pragmatic, mechanical manner. Basically, and nowadays it's they want to stake their claim because it's what they believe with all their heart and soul. And even though it has been historically dismantled by people, but they double, triple, quadruple down on it with the same fervor that their former religious opponents used to do for their claims.
Well, where does this fervor come from? And really, the more I look into it, the more, these people, they're following a model.
I got this one
that I call a survival model, but they think that their very survival depends on towing this line because it's worked for them so far.
Well, this is one that that Dalan and I can specifically
hold it in a death grip because your priest, your mullah, your rabbi doing nothing but making a living off of your contribution while they live in the palace of gold and you live in a freaking mud hut.
Well, not just that. There are also the ones who are preaching who have come to the conclusion that what they were preaching, they don't believe. And, they have come to the realization that, oh, crap, I just led these 20 people, 30 people, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 people and their family members to believe this shit. And I now know how wrong it is, but I've convinced all them that it's right. And you want to talk about somebody who has a sense of empathy and remorse and regret getting hit with that burden of what they just did. That's soul crushing, to turn a phrase. That's why there's the, what do they call that? The something project, the priest project, pastor project, something project.
Oh, yeah. I'll look it up and find it. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, but there's a program together for basically priests and rabbis and pastors and so on and so forth. All the different leader positions who come to secularism. They basically become agnostic or atheist or some of those A words, and they start questioning things, and they need a place to turn to. But they can't quite leave what they're doing at the pulpit yet, because it's the only thing that they, the Clergy Project, that's it. Clergyproject.org. Thank you, guys. Anyway, they can't leave yet because they have no backups. They have no place to fall back on, because that was their entire life, and their entire life was just pulled out from underneath them. As a believer, for somebody else, they may be going to work still, and maybe they're working with computers, or maybe they're working with video projection systems, or maybe they're just a data entry specialist or a data analyst. They can still go to work with or without their beliefs. But when you got somebody like in the clergy, and the only thing they have is their beliefs and preaching them, that's got to be hard.
If you have a doctorate in fairy tales.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how I vaguely can imagine, I guess, how traumatizing that could be for them.
It's it's their means of survival.
Yeah.
But then you've got the people who know full well that what they're preaching is bullshit, but they keep doing it because it's a great source of income.
Yeah, there are people that I remember. I think Seth Andrews interviewed a priest, an atheist, but he still does what he does because it's all he knows how to do. But moving away from religion in that respect, it's that same kind of philosophy is finding its way into the political sphere right now, where you've got pundits on either side making claims, trying to make assertions, and they're getting a very toxic mob following behind them on either side of the political fence. And I have wanted to basically go up to these people, the ringleaders, and say, okay, buddy, you're telling me this? Prove it. I want proof that could turn a grand jury to your favor before I will agree with what you have to say, because I doubt, sir, your sincerity. I am skeptical of it. I doubt it. And that is because it seems to me that for every claim I've heard, I have heard evidence to counter it. And then these same people will then double.
Should instead be looking at veracity.
Fair point.
Just
I never said it was a master of the English. It's called toccata. The na. This wasn't it, but it was about the same caliber in terms of speed and complexity.
Gotcha.
We were speechless.
Surfers album.
I remember the first time I heard that album.
Hairway to Stephen.
Yes. They had a hidden track at the end of the cassette tape on side B for one of their albums.
Oh, which one? That one was the Bounds on it, wasn't it?
It was either that one or the one with the worm. One of the two.
Yeah, just so that everybody is aware. Yes, the Butthole Surfers was
a band.
Still
a band.
Still. I don't know. Still,
yeah, at least from a few years ago. But I mean, I had a buddy of mine that he was into punk. There was, let's see, Butthole Surfers, Skinny Puppy, Millions of Dead Christians.
Skinny Puppies, yeah, I listen to them a lot.
Suicidal Tendencies, the Dead Kennedys, Dead Kennedys.
Suicidal tendencies. So your mommy and your mommy's dead.
DOA.
I watched her as she
with the incomparable. Yeah, there was DOA with the band leader Joey Shithead.
Oh, like the Dead Kennedys, their lead singer is Jello Biafra.
Yeah,
no relation.
Now Jello, he was one of the guys that sort of went. One of my favorite speeches from him was you can look it up online. It's called "Grow More Pot." You figure out why y'all got a war on drugs down there after listening to that.
We're not going to get into that.
I know, but
there's such a deep dive on that. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't help it. All I can think of is Dead Milkmen.
Oh, I forgot that band. Yeah.
Oh, Butthole Surfers, they might be coming out with a new album, the first in 10 years, because of Trump. They're saying that they don't know how they cannot come out with a new album.
Seriously, that doesn't actually surprise me. Well, some of their stuff was actually politically motivated. Not a lot, but some of it.
The Shaw sleeps in Lee Harvey's grave.
Just saying, they're older than us.
Yeah, I guess. When did they start? It's about the same. No, they were a little bit older than me.
Could be. And yeah, now I gotta. Yeah.
And punk is an attitude. It's not a genre.
It's a little bit of column A. It's a little bit of fried rice B.
Yeah, well,
a little bit of all of
it. When it comes down to it, punks are skeptics. They question the status quo in your face.
Yeah.
I hadn't. I'd always thought of them much more contrarians, but the idea that they're the ones that are questioning who's doing what.
Well, they gave you the image of being anarchists.
Yeah, which is not really a. Sorry, I'm not going to get down.
No, but that was the way they were projected. But yeah, they were critical of the establishment. They encourage people, think for yourself, go your own way. Don't
against the entire conformism machine, which is society.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to say something. I forgot it. Sorry, go on. I wanted to say something. I forgot it. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Say is we're going to see about closing out anyway. I'll leave it open to you guys. For those of you that think that doing the whole non-conformity thing is the way to go, that's great. Stop shopping at Spencer's.
That cool kids did not walk into. They avoided the place. And interesting because you could get stuff like Invader Zim and all the neat stuff that was going on that none of the cool kids did involved in because only nerds did that, or only those creepy goth kids over in the corner did that, or like a lot of the people I hung out with, we went in there and we thought, wow, they actually made a store for us. They got some neat stuff in here, and granted some of it's cheap, but some of it's not, some of it's actually pretty decent. And then it slowly started to become popular, and it was like, what the hell are the jocks doing in here? What are the preppy kids doing in here? No, don't. And then it was like, now we got to find somewhere else to go. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who remember Spencer's growing up, Spencer's gift shop, and have not recently been to a Spencer's gift shop, if you don't want your young ones seeing certain kinds of adult gifts that didn't used to be in Spencer's, but is definitely now there, depending on what state you live in, stay at the front of the store, okay? You thought the back was bad before. You haven't seen the wall of dildos.
Yep.
I walked in there with my well, let's just put it this way. I had a shock. and I turned to my significant other and I said, I had no idea I did not know that they had done this. I am sorry. And my significant other looked at me and went, oh, it's okay. Wow, there sure are a lot, though. Because it was floor to ceiling and about 16 feet wide.
Which just makes me wonder.
And I'm talking about the section, not the item.
No, I know. And now I'm thinking to myself, how do you...
Reaction. And I said, well, I didn't know this was here. It's like, I'm almost X amount of years old. When I used to go to Spencer's, the worst they had was product X, product Y, and product Z. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's over there. She's like, at least you didn't run screaming from the store like some other people.
Yeah, that's something else we got to end up talking about some other time. I got to find out about that. Anyway,
you don't know it. That was one of his big ones, and I lean on that one very heavily these days. If you can't show me definitive proof to back up the claim you're making or the accusation you're making, then I am well within my rights to completely dismiss you. You know, point me where you want so that maybe I have to educate myself, and I might. But if you're just going to sit there and throw me some bogus claim with some equally bogus so-called evidence that does nothing but make you look like even more of a fool than I think you are, yeah, we're done.
And I just dropped a little thing over in there. I thought that maybe you'd... I don't know if I'm specifically paraphrasing it correctly or if I'm...
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah,
that can be what is it? That which is stated can without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Yep. I forgot who it was that had that one, but there's...
It's fine.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But back on to...
I'm going to show you something after this show.
Fair enough. We'll see how...
I got a picture of me when I was 15 or...
if this...
15 or 16.
If this is the one that made it to Facebook, I think I saw it. Strapping young lad.
Me in full punk regalia.
I may not have seen that one then.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right.
Shave it for later.
We'll go ahead and we'll do that. So, of course, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Hope that you had a little bit of fun with us and found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives. I want to go ahead and say at this point, right off the bat, we had some apparently technical problems. The folks that were trying to watch us live were having a real hard time because of buffering issues and stuff not coming down to them. And for those of you that were trying, I was watching the live chat. I'm sorry. I have no idea what might have been happening to you guys. But thank you for trying as hard as you did. And still, have yourself a good rest of the weekend.
Oh, you do. And thank you.
No worries. Unrenewed Tech.
Good night.
You know, they didn't change the locks before he came home, huh?
Yeah, we're not going there.
You try to have yourself a good rest of your night also, huh?
You too.
All right.
I wish, a Canadian apology would actually do something about that, but no, it is the great gods of YouTube that have sundered this night. However, I will endeavor to get this up on the audio site over at holycrapblogcast.com. Segway. And to further kind of ventings and stuff, you can catch me over at inthewind.yo5.ca.
So thank you guys for being with us. As always, if you'd like to go ahead and send us any messages, you can just TV 554-859-4288 554. And if you feel generous for whatever strange reason, patreon.com/HCTV. I don't know that I need to do anything special over there. It's just sitting there, and if anybody wants to donate, that's wonderful. I don't want to do any kind of upload a link over to them, because I don't want people to just go ahead and say, yeah, I'll spot you $1 every time you upload to something, because no, I was trying to catch that. Things just went poorly. And whatever. At the time of this recording, I'm going to